All right, Mayor Zach, welcome back to Mayor's Monday here at WSAU.com. You've got visuals today, a lot of great visuals here, and an exciting project that you're getting ready to kind of unveil. Tell us about the master plan that you have here for the great zoo down in Wisconsin Rapids.
Sure. So pleased to be with you again today. About a year ago, a generous benefactor contributed $300,000 as part of an estate gift to the city for improvements at the zoo. And that $300,000, we didn't really have a long-range master plan that guided future planning and future investment at the zoo. So we thought, we can do a fairly simple and fairly quick long-range master plan. And so we kicked off a discussion. The Park and Rec Commission agreed to spend a couple of $1,000s, so it was a very small investment for a pretty long, actually a fair amount of time to invest in a planning session for long range for the zoo. So about $300,000 was given to the city, and as part of this process, we kicked off a master planning exercise. The neat part about the project is we involved the Mayor's Youth Council, who is a group of students that are very active and interested in the future of this town. They're very passionate and they're involved in a lot of activities. And so what they did is they themselves took some time to research other municipal zoos around the state. Actually the end of the zoo season last year, they walked through the zoo and got some input and feedback about what they thought the zoo could have or be improved to have. And following that, they agreed to put together a community survey. And that survey went live in late January, and over the course of 3 weeks, they received 638 responses. So one of the quickest surveys to receive that many responses in my time, and it was pretty impressive that it demonstrated that the community really wanted to put their input forth in the zoo. So as part of that survey, they shared what they liked about the zoo, what they thought the zoo could have, or what improvements they could have in terms of other programming and expansion. The interesting thing about the zoo is it's bounded by a railroad crossing, railroad tracks here, and then there's a stormwater pond. And presently, the stormwater pond is disconnected from the zoo. Most stormwater ponds are kind of they're afterthoughts, they're set aside, and the plan here was, or at least the vision or the idea that they came up with, was integrating the stormwater pond, which generally has water in it throughout the year, as part of the zoo. And so they decided to put a simple gravel path around the pond, decided that we should probably consider having some native plantings and things at the property. And then the zoo footprint itself expanded with some more feature exhibits and better animal habitats, all things that came out of that survey, as well as the research that the students came up with.
So just exactly how many exhibits are you looking at expanding at the zoo?
Well, we've got 2 large animal exhibits today, a zedonk and some other larger animals that kind of come and go depending on the year. But there's going to be a bird exhibit. Suggestion was to do river otters. The river otters seem to be very, very popular among children and parents even alike. And so that was part of it. And then picnic areas, seating areas. We've got a real strong master gardener presence at the zoo, so the gardens are beautiful and they're very large and well maintained. So pretty much bringing a feature exhibit or 2 to the property that really amp up kind of its presence and its draw for residents.
So the $300,000 then that you were given initially, all that's going right back into the zoo.
Yeah, the restrictions were it was unrestricted but restricted to zoo improvements, and so we definitely want to put that money to good work for the benefit of zoo patrons. What blows my mind is our municipal zoo received 17,000 visits in the 79 or 80 days that it's open in the summer every year. So it is a well-utilized municipal asset and community asset, and we believe, as the survey respondents told us, number 1, thanks for asking for our input. Number 2, we want to make improvements, and we're glad to see the city's wanting to reinvest in it. And 3, we want it to really be a place where people spend more time than just a quick walk through the zoo and pet some animals and kind of go on with their day.
That's an impressive number nonetheless. Talk about the amount of time that the zoo is open. You're saying 3-4 months at the most, and you're getting nearly 20,000 people to go through there.
That's right. It's Memorial Day to Labor Day, so on average 140, 160 visitors a day.
And that's definitely something that Wisconsin Rapids can be proud of. I'll move the camera over here so we can take a look at just the close-up of what you're looking for to expand here in the zoo. Now, could you point out here on the map? We'll do your best Vanna White impression. What is the proposed expansion area of the zoo?
So essentially the borders of the zoo, this is the area that's kind of in existence where the boundary fence runs, but then it kind of cuts around. And so all of this area would be new, and this area would be new exhibit area. And there's a lot of the paths that are there today don't operate in a circular fashion. You almost start and then you have to kind of walk back. So the idea was to create more circulation throughout the property, to add some future exhibits like a water feature, update some enclosures, a bird aviary, and then more of an educational picnic area, and then river otters and some other thoughts that are there. It's right next to our trail system that runs throughout the city, so you can actually get to the two communities south of us as well as the communities north of us and to our downtown all through this trail system. About a 26-mile trail system throughout our region, which is a great asset. And so the river, it's not too far from the river either. So it's a great destination, whether you're coming on car or coming via car, on bike or by foot. We believe the zoo can really be a greater attraction for residents to enjoy in the summertime.
So that's one big project that you've got coming up in the pipeline here in Wisconsin Rapids, and probably one of your more fun projects that you get to do as mayor as well.
And people always ask, why do you enjoy the job? We see you on all these public meetings and your meetings. Well, it's these types of activities and planning projects that some of this project won't be done in my time in office, whatever that time would be. It's a long-range plan that guides future work. So if some future administration or community member steps forward and say, you know what, I could see investing in that because it's such a widely used amenity in your community, we have a plan to make that happen. So that's very neat.
So that's one thing that you've got in the pipeline here. Your office has been busy the last couple of weeks putting out some big press releases, and one of those is actually coming up. I believe this is on Tuesday, March 19th, and that's going to be a big zoning rewrite for the city's comprehensive plan. I know this is probably a very, well, it says comprehensive in the title, so it's large in scope, but just kind of give us a few of the details about what you're looking for there.
The city zoning code was created in the 1980s, and that the world's changed a lot since the 1980s. The community has changed a lot. Our economy here has changed a lot. So we really approached a full rewrite of our zoning code. We essentially threw the old code out the window and decided we were going to recreate a code. Essentially, it creates a lot more pictorial and table type references. So a user that approaches the city zoning code now has to read a lot of legal speak and technical terms. And while our new zoning code will have some of that, the intent was to create something that was a lot easier and more user-friendly for developers and builders and people looking to make investments in property in the city.
So have you found that to be kind of a burden at times where people don't necessarily want to approach the city because of all the hoops they would have to jump through?
I think so, and I think a lot of it's interpretation. It takes a lot of gray areas and makes them black and white. And people like black and white because they like to know what they can do and what they can't do. It also sets some new standards for landscaping, parking lots, lighting, because we recognize that a lot of those things go to a community's character, and our zoning code was pretty silent on things like landscaping requirements, and we were quite surprised when a large chain pharmacy, for example, came to our city and their model had higher landscaping standards than our zoning code required. And that might be their model, but it also meant that other cities that they're doing businesses, that met the standards. So we felt, it was a good reflection and time for us to update our zoning code.
So what will residents notice then about these proposed changes? Obviously, you're not going to all of a sudden be flip-flopping the city and saying this is commercial, this is now residential, or vice versa, but what would residents then notice when they're looking to maybe build or do some business here in Wisconsin Rapids?
Well, our future land use map, which is the map that guides future development across the city, had a number of errors in it. And it had current property listed as agriculture and future use as agriculture. Well, neither of them were true, right? We're in an urban environment. So really it should clean up a lot of errors and things that were lost or missed in the last zoning code and future land use map. And it won't be a quick fix. Our zoning code lasted 30-some years when it was last updated in the 80s. So it's going to guide future development for the next 30 years. But we'll notice the changes in future developments. People will see more landscaping. They'll see just different standards and quality standards. a lot of masonry construction signs, wanting to create standard or neighborhoods designation for in terms of standard of development. So you'll see a lot. I think community character over the long haul will be reflected. Higher quality will be reflected in the future zoning code.
Making the city brighter and maybe more colorful, maybe more appealing to somebody from the outside.
That's right. You know, we hear a lot that our community has a look and the feel of an industrial town, and that is certainly our history, and it still has a major presence here today. But our zoning code also needs to reflect current standards and practices of communities around the state. So as far as that process goes, we'll have had an open house, and then we'll be having a public hearing so folks can weigh in with their thoughts on the changes.
And how long before you see this zoning code finally be getting its final drafting and getting approved by the council?
We're hoping in May, which will put us at over 20 months, nearly 2 years of working on the full rewrite. We had every month the Planning Commission had meetings, public meetings where folks could attend, and some attended in various meetings, and so that hopefully we'll have that set in place come summer.
And then you also have an exciting new housing development that you're hoping to get online here in the next couple of years or so. In fact, you just put out the call for RFPs. Talk about what this is going to mean for the west side of Wisconsin Rapids, where you're going to have homes now in the $150,000 to $250,000 value in a neighborhood that you say is in need of them.
That's right. You know, we owned the city property forever, and there had been times where maybe there was a water tower that needed to be built or a senior center, those types of things. Well, at this point in time, we don't have a better use than to create a city subdivision for that property. So what we're doing is we're inviting builders and developers to put in a proposal to tell us what they would like to do with the property. There, you know, you can get nearly a dozen homes in the city in that property, and it's all about creating demand and creating new housing stock. And we know that residents choose to live in places first, and then they tend to find employment second. So if we can continue, it fits our vision and our direction about creating an attractive community that has the current quality of housing and the current type of housing that our residents or prospective residents are looking for.
So what was would be your vision then for some of these homes? What would be the look of this neighborhood? Obviously, you don't have the final say, but
Right.
if you did, what would you
Yeah,
like
the city
to see?
council will have the final say. We really wanted, they're a little bit larger lots than what some people are accustomed to throughout the city. It'll have a different character, you know, won't have the grid because of the way there's some under wetland issues there, so we can't really put in the natural traditional grid that you'll see in cities. So the homes will be, you know, masonry and hopefully some brick style to them, and the facades will be very nice and very attractive, and obviously for that price point. So we'll see what the developers and interested parties come forward with. There is a deadline here at the end of March, I believe, we're looking at for proposals, and then we'll consider those when the deadline comes.
So what will be around this neighborhood then? Because the release says this is going to be an area that's in need of some residential areas. What is this going to be close to then?
You know, it's really on the edge of our city limits. It actually almost touches the boundary to the west. And our west side of our town has seen a lot of recent activity in terms of reinvestment. And so it's exciting to see the opportunity and kind of continue along that momentum. There are a large employers over in that neck of the woods. So having, you know, the housing that's close to work, as a lot of people more and more are wanting to bike or walk to work, this development will certainly offer that. It's also not too far from what will now be the new combined middle school in the city as the school district realigns and moves their 9th graders to the high school, and so you'll have the middle school then officially a number of blocks from that development.
So really a lot going on in that neighborhood then.
No question, yeah.
So
Long
what-
time in the coming, though. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people saw the west side as something that had seen a lot of disinvestment, but now that you know, the new Chevy brand came back to the neighborhood, and they established a major presence on the west end and our industrial park to the north that has seen some reinvestment. It's really exciting.
And now, again, as the building and construction season kind of comes in here, and we're going to start thawing the ground here pretty soon. Street construction season coming up in Wisconsin Rapids pretty soon as well. Do you have any big projects coming up in the pipeline?
Well, it's funny, we were just talking about the west side. We've got
Yeah.
one of the major thoroughfares on the west side that doesn't have sidewalks in many sections. So it's a city corridor that, as somebody that participates in walking school bus, where I walk kids to school on occasion, and we're walking in the streets. It just breaks my heart to see these kids in the wintertime having to walk in city streets to school. So High Street is the major corridor that's going to be reconstructed. It's a major project, and it'll be phased over the course of summer. And then next year, that complement on the south side of the west side, so the southwest corner, will also be reconstructed. So the west side is seeing its turn, really, when it comes to reinvestment and new activity.
Anything else that you'd like to add before we let you go today?
I don't think so. Thanks again for our listeners and for the opportunity.
All right.